hearing God's voice is way more simple than you might think. And of course, the enemy doesn't want you to know that. You've just got to know what you're looking for. It's simple to learn to recognize God's voice. The enemy's voice is also very recognizable, again, once you know what you're looking for. When people talk about hearing God's voice, most of the time, they are not hearing an audible voice. I have never heard God's voice with my ears. I hear him in my mind, I know in my heart, and I experience it in my body. I talked to someone last night who is learning to recognize God's voice. They struggle deeply with shame and not feeling good enough, and that affects how they think God sees them. Yet they still have such great faith because every time I talk to them, even though their feelings are so convincing, they are still choosing to claim God's truth as reality instead of how they feel. Last night they said, I heard God and I knew it was him. They told me what he said, which fit with his character in scripture. And I asked, what did it feel like emotionally? Meaning, how did you feel in your body? They described it as peaceful and loving, no shame, but like a father and friend who cares deeply for them. This person had never been able to recognize God's voice, only the pressured, rushed, stressful, shaming, accusing voice of the enemy. When the enemy is influencing our thoughts, especially if it's been this long-held belief, our body will respond physiologically with feelings of fear or tension, racing thoughts, tightness in the chest, the pit in your stomach of dread and shame. I can confidently say, because of scripture, those feelings have nothing to do with God. Scripture describes the devil as a roaring lion, seeking whom he may devour, and that he only comes to steal, kill, and destroy. Especially your trust in the Lord. And one hugely obvious indicator that the enemy is speaking to you, he uses shiny and deceptive and scary stuff to try to take our focus off the Lord. Just like Peter, Jesus invited him out to literally walk on water. And Peter's eyes were fixed on Jesus and his power until he allowed the big, scary waves and strong winds distract him from the greater power which was in Jesus. He started to sink. The voice of God comforts, it redirects, and it leads us into truth and abundant life, which is always backed up by scripture. When you realize that God's character is only ever good, you'll recognize his voice, even when he's convicting you of sin or asking you to trust him with something that you're horrified of. And his voice can be firm, but never shaming. And learning to discern between God's voice and the enemy's voice, it takes time. But remember, God is always speaking, even when your body is still feeling the enemy's lies. So pray for clarity. And if you struggle with any of this, I literally made a guide for this reason. It's called Think Again, and it goes in depth on exactly what it looks like to renew your mind. You can find that on the link in my bio.